Donald Trump said the number one goal of his presidency would be a peace agreement between Palestinians and Israelis. His peace plan is now prepared and is likely to be revealed within the next few weeks. This peace agreement appears to match the one which the Bible says will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to Armageddon and the physical return of Jesus to the earth. Well, I am just stunned and excited about where we live right now. We've been talking to you for a long, long time about this peace agreement that's prophesied in the Bible. It's the peace agreement that will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming, the physical second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. It's the one prophecy we have with a specific timeline attached to it. And that's what makes it so exciting. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to you today about a prophetic fulfillment that will be the greatest prophetic fulfillment in 2,000 years. And it looks like it's just ahead of us right now. So let's talk about it. President Trump has said repeatedly that he has a peace plan. He calls it the deal of the deal of the century. So he continually talks about this great thing. They've been working on this for 3 years. Well, it is done now. It's been done for a while. However, it actually was finished around the 1st of 2019. But Prime Minister Netanyahu asked President Trump to not release it until the elections that were to be held on April the 9th of 2019. Trump honored that request. However, when the elections were held, there was no one elected. Nobody could get the required 61 seats in the Knesset. The governments and all the different parties were so fragmented that they could not come together with the 61 seats. Consequently, they held a new election on September the 17th with the same result. Again, President Trump held off. Well, now they have another election coming up, March the 2nd, 2020. And President Trump has held off again. However, he's having second thoughts. I mean, the news media is rife with articles. I'm not talking about one or two. I'm talking about 5 or 10 articles over the last week of the possibility of Trump going ahead and releasing the peace plan now. Apparently, he's come to believe that the next election may not give a government because Israel is still so fragmented. Now, the next election is a month and a half from now, March the 2nd. But Avi Berkowitz, who is the new deputy envoy of President Trump concerning the Middle East, he was in Israel this last week speaking with Benjamin Netanyahu and also speaking with Benny Gantz, the other candidate for the prime ministership of Israel in the next election, March the 2nd. Well, when he met with them, he was urging them that the time had come to go ahead and release the peace plan and let it be on the table for debate during this present campaign. Well, now the question is, will the U.S. release the Middle East peace plan before the Israeli elections? This article comes from Israel National News just today. The Trump administration may release its much-awaited Middle East peace plan before Israel holds its third election on March the 2nd. Now, this will be the third election in the last 11 months or so. U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien told Axios that the administration won't be considering Israeli or Palestinian Authority domestic political concerns in the timing of its release of the Middle East peace plan, dubbed the deal of the century by President Trump. I don't think it necessarily depends on the elections. They will have had 3 elections in a row. We'll have to see, said O'Brien. O'Brien's comments came following reports that Israeli officials believe the White House is in fact, listen to that carefully, is in fact planning to release its Middle East peace plan before the March 2nd Knesset election. Now, you know how close we are right now. If they release it before that, it is going to be very, very soon, and it's going to be incredibly exciting. Remember, this peace plan apparently contains the elements of the prophesied peace plan that will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the return of Jesus to this earth.
About our trip, it was a wonderful experience. We totally enjoyed the time spent with other believers, worshiping and experiencing the places where Christ walked. One of our favorites was being on Mount Moriah, where the Holy of Holies are, the Dome of the Spirit. And the teachings that Brother Baxter did was so enlightening. It was so much to take in. It will take us another month or two to really grasp the full extent of the knowledge we received on this trip. Our tour guide in Israel was fantastic. He was very knowledgeable. I think God chose him just for us. Thanks, Jana. Our lives will never be the same. We will try to do this tour again. Mike and Julie L., Cayman Islands.
Join us May 1st through May 16th, 2020, for a trip to the wonderful land of Israel and the Holy Roman Empire reborn.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Endtime Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
Let me just add my comments about the tour to Israel this coming spring. To me, it's the finest tour we do. Israel and the Holy Roman Empire. When we move through Europe, you're actually going to be walking on the soil that will soon produce the Antichrist and his religious partner, the false prophet. We'll be explaining all about the Holy Roman Empire, which comes out of Europe, on this trip. Judy and I will be with you every step of the way. Let me tell you, this is the trip. May 1 through May 16. I hope you'll join us. Let's get right back to our comments and subject right now. Now, we're talking today about the peace plan that's prophesied in the Bible. It's found in Daniel chapter 9, verse number 27. This particular article is questioning whether the peace plan will be released before Israel's elections on March the 2nd, 2020. Here's what the article continues to say. The release of the peace plan was postponed twice in the lead up to the Israeli elections in 2019. That was April the 9th, September the 17th, with the White House saying it did not want to interfere with Israel's political process. While the White House has not made its final decision, Trump envoy Avi Berkowitz's visit to Israel just recently was part of the preparations for a possible launch of the peace plan, Israeli officials told Barak Ravid of Channel 13. Another article about the release of the peace plan, and let me tell you, I've got a computer full of them. This article is entitled, Top Trump Official Rejects Claims Releasing the Peace Plan Before Israeli Elections is Interference. U.S. President Donald Trump's National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, told Axios that releasing the Middle East peace plan before Israel's March 2nd general election would not harm Israel's electoral process. The peace plan for Israel and the Palestinians has been in deep freeze since Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu failed to form a government after Israel's April 9th election. O'Brien's remarks come after Benny Gantz, Netanyahu's chief rival, said on Wednesday that the publication of the plan before the election would constitute interference in Israel's political process. Now remember something. This was the day after Gantz met with Avi Berkowitz about the plan. Berkowitz met with Netanyahu on Monday. He then met with Gantz on Tuesday. And now that on Wednesday, Gantz says he feels like the release of the plan would be interference. So I have this question. Does this mean Gantz does not favor parts of the peace plan? I'm sure that Avi Berkowitz disclosed to him a lot of what the plan actually contains. Well, Gantz, head of the Kahol Lavan party, better known as the Blue and White Party, was asked during a party meeting in Jerusalem about his meeting Tuesday with Avi Berkowitz, assistant to Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. I am happy about these meetings and about the important ties with the United States, Gantz replied, but added, I can assume that on such an important matter, the Americans would be careful and not publish it before the election, because that would be an outright interference in the state of Israel's election process. Now let's pause a minute and think about this. What if the peace plan is unveiled and then Netanyahu totally embraces the plan? If Gantz then opposes the plan, and he'll have to take a stance, then the issue in the elections would become the peace plan, not Netanyahu. Right now, everything is centered on the charges of corruption that have been filed against Netanyahu. But this peace plan, determining the future borders of the nation of Israel and many other key issues, as soon as you put it on the table, it immediately becomes the most important thing going. It could dramatically shift the impetus of the election. Now, asked to address Gantz's remarks, O'Brien said, we're not focused on the Israeli election calendar or when the Palestinians end up having an election. According to Axios, O'Brien said that the U.S. administration doesn't expect the Israeli leadership to end the ongoing political deadlock before the release of the plan. Now, what does this mean? He's saying we don't think they're going to get a government on March the 2nd because it just appears that Israel is so horribly deadlocked. Now, what he did not say was Perhaps putting the plan on the table will then allow the Israeli public to choose between the person who favors the plan and the person who does not. Now, I've not been told that Gantz does not favor the plan. Perhaps he will. I don't know that answer. Nevertheless, this is the sentiment that's going on in Israel right now and will play out over the next few weeks. Jordan's King Abdullah II told France 24, that's a media outlet, in an interview published recently, he's not sure when the plan would be released. Now we're talking about King Abdullah, Israel's most important neighbor, one of the two Arab countries that have a peace agreement with Israel. So Abdullah says, we're not sure when the plan will be released, but we keep hearing that the plan will be presented sometime soon. Our job then is to look at the glass as half full, he said. How do we build on the plan, and how do we build it in such a way we bring the Israelis and the Palestinians together? And so the problem is it's difficult for us to make decisions on the plan when we don't really know what it is. Now, this is what all the Middle East leaders are putting up with right now. They've been told parts of the plan. They have not been given total disclosure. Now, if and when President Trump makes this public, we'll have a word-for-word unveiling of the text of the plan. I've been told that it's about 60 pages. America already released the financial part of the plan back on June the 23rd of 2019. We know, you can go to the White House website, and there you can read word for word all of the financial plans for the release of the peace plan. You can read it right there. But the controversial part of the plan is the political part, and that's what everybody is so anxious to see. The King of Jordan said, I believe the deal of the century will be released soon. This comes from the Jerusalem Post just today. U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan will likely be revealed soon. Jordan's King Abdullah II told France 24 as he warned that Israeli annexation plans and the absence of a government was harming his country's relation with the Jewish state. He's saying they don't have a government. It's hard to deal with. Yes, they have an interim government, but this interim government cannot take significant steps because they're only holding down the fort until new elections, successful elections, can be conducted. Abdullah said that while he has no information on when the deal will be released, he has spoken with Trump about it numerous times. Now listen close to this. King Abdullah of Jordan has spoken with President Trump about it numerous times and thinks that it will be announced soon, which will allow him and his European partners to make decisions on how to proceed. Our job when the plan is released is to look at the glass half full, he told France 24, adding that he plans to build on the deal to bring Israelis and Palestinians together. Now let's pause there for just a moment. Jordan, for many years, has been the friendliest country to Israel. And this has been true for a long time. Well, now then, the first Arab leader that President Trump brought to the White House as soon as he was inaugurated was President Abdullah, because he understands the key role that Abdullah plays between Israel and the Arab world. After all, Jordan has the longest border with Israel. It runs all the way up and down the Jordan River. Consequently, King Abdullah plays a very important role. And he said now twice, our job is going to be to view this agreement as a glass half full rather than as a glass half empty. In other words, we shouldn't enter into this thing trying to find flaws in it and fault with it, but we should be looking for good news and what the possibilities are. Now, Abdullah said that the main problem is that until the plan is released, Jordan and its European allies are in a gray area and that they cannot make decisions on how to proceed until they see the details of the plan. When discussing his conversations with Trump, he thinks the president understands. Oh, this is a key phrase here. King Abdullah thinks that the president understands what is needed to bring Israelis and Palestinians together. Now, don't forget, Abdullah said he's talked numerous times with President Trump about the situation. And now here this key player is stating he believes President Trump understands what is needed to bring Israelis and Palestinians together, which he emphasized is what Jordan supports. The king sees stability between the Israelis and the Palestinians as key to regional stability. The king also discussed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's annexation announcement, which he remarked had tremendous negativity towards the Israeli-Jordanian relationship. He's talking about Netanyahu's proposal that Israel would go ahead and annex the Jordan Valley. That's the strip of land on the west side of the Jordan River, but it's the area that Israel says she must keep in order to maintain security, because if they would surrender that strip of land, that would allow any enemy of Israel to come on across the Jordan and move on into Israel proper to make attacks on Israel from there. However, the nation of Israel has always held we must maintain all the way to the Jordan River. So that's one of the things that has to be dealt with in Trump's peace plan. Now, continuing on, the article stated, however, he emphasized that he would not know more until the elections were finished. From the Jordanian perspective, the Israeli-Jordanian relationship is important. Moving dialogue back between the Israelis and the Palestinians is essential, and moving the dialogue back between Israel and Jordan, which has been on pause for the past 2 years, is essential. He added that Jordan is strategically committed to the peace between Jordan and Israel. That is a major element of stability in the region, and that due to the Israeli elections, which have been going on for more than a year, the Israeli-Jordanian relationship is on pause. Okay, so what does all this mean? Prophecy teachers have been puzzling over the prophecy called Daniel's 70 weeks of years for 1,000 years, especially in recent times, knowing that we're nearing the time of the second coming, especially since the rebirth of the nation of Israel in 1948. Prophecy students have looked at the prophecy in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 through 27, to try to decipher the meaning of all of this. The prophecy simply states that the Antichrist will confirm Israel's right to exist. It's called the Abrahamic covenant, with many for 7 years. In the middle of the 7 years, he'll cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. That tells us that the Jewish sacrifice will have been resumed by then. There will be a temple built by then. And it tells us all of these facts. They're easy to conclude once you put all the pieces of this great prophetic puzzle together. So we've been looking at this for a long time, knowing that when they sign the peace agreement, that is a signpost in the ground, marking the beginning of the final 7 years to the glorious, dramatic second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. It's also going to mark the beginning of the prophesied battle of Armageddon. So since this prophecy has such tremendous weight and importance, student after student, teacher after teacher, scholar after scholar have pored over these events in an attempt to understand where we are. Well, all I'm telling you today is, it appears to me that this peace agreement that President Trump has put together, I only know part of what it contains. Some of it has been leaked. The part that it contains that I know fits perfectly with the prophecy of the Bible and how the peace agreement in the Bible has to turn out. These two things mesh permanently. Now, just as soon as they publish this peace plan in its entirety, I'll be able to come back to you and lay every element of the prophecy in the Bible side by side with every element of President Trump's peace plan. And we'll be able to see if they mesh perfectly. If they do, then this peace plan, called Deal of the Century, will be the plan in the prophecy that marks the beginning of the final 7 years. And once it is agreed to between Israelis and Palestinians, you and I will know where we are right now. Now, will this happen in 2020? I cannot make you a firm promise, but it certainly looks like it is an extreme possibility. If I were guessing as a student of Bible prophecy, I would say the chances are 50-50. Cannot give you an absolute guarantee today. However, I can tell you we're really close. So God bless you all today. This is such critical and important times. Give us a call here at Endtime Ministries, 1-800-ENDTIME.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctor's offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about the news that is everywhere, that President Trump may be on the brink of going ahead and revealing his deal of the century, his peace plan between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, we're not talking about 1 or 2 articles. We're talking about at least 8 or 10 articles in the last few days. The rumors are rife that he will soon release this. The object is to release it before the elections on March the 2nd. If he's going to do that, if he wants it to be on the table for debate during the elections, that means he would release it within possibly days or at the very longest weeks. So it's very interesting. There's a lot of speculation. Most of it appears to be emanating from the White House. President Trump's personal deputy to the Middle East, Avi Berkowitz, he's the one that replaced Jason Greenblatt. He was with Prime Minister Netanyahu 1 week ago on Monday. He was with Benny Gantz, the other candidate for Prime Minister of Israel, on Tuesday. And according to all the reports, he was sounding them out about how they would feel about the release of the peace plan within the next few days. So that's where we are. Something I have been teaching about, preaching about for 20, 30 years. It looks like we may well be on the brink. Now, if you want to really understand what I think the importance is, most of you know that I wrote a book in 1986 in which I stated the Berlin Wall would come down, the two Germanys would be reunited, and that would be the event that would plunge us into the New World Order. Everybody sort of laughed at me at the time. However, November the 9th, 1989, the Berlin Wall did come down, and within a matter of 20 days, Mikhail Gorbachev, President Bush Sr., and Pope John Paul II met together, announcing the birth of the New World Order. So it's all fallen into place since that time. Now, that was quite a thing. My phone rang incessantly that day. All I did was talk on the phone that day. Everybody wanted to know, how did you know this? Where is this in the Bible? What does this mean? What's going to happen next? Well, that was an important turning point in God's plan, but not nearly as important as this peace plan when it's signed. When that's signed, you can just mark your calendar 7 years to the second coming of Jesus Christ in the Battle of Armageddon. That's how important it is. Now, before we come to your calls, and we will be coming there shortly, the number to reach me, 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. But I have some important announcements I need to make to you. I'm going to be doing a prophecy conference right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, actually in Garland, Texas, this coming Saturday night and Sunday night. Plus, I will be preaching both services for Pastor Hargrove for the North Cities Church on Sunday morning. So there's actually going to be 3 sessions, Saturday night, Sunday morning, either in the 9 o'clock service or the 11 o'clock service. It'll be the same session both times. And then also Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, I'll again be speaking on breaking prophetic fulfillments, and we'll cover a lot of things that we won't be covered on Saturday night. Now, I'm not announcing my subject yet, because if President Trump releases this peace plan in the next 2 or 3 days, that's going to be my subject. I'll just tell you right now, I have something else in mind to speak about. So all I can tell you is, don't miss it. This is to be announced on Saturday night. And then on Sunday night, breaking prophetic fulfillments. Sunday morning, I will be preaching a message from God's Word. And many of you may be wondering about your salvation. Perhaps you want to hear more about what it takes to be saved. Well, I will be addressing those questions in the 2 services on Sunday morning. So you may be listening to this from somewhere around the world. Feel free to fly in, grab a hotel, and be with us Sunday morning and Saturday night, Sunday morning and Sunday night. Just sort of make a weekend of it. It is going to be a fabulous time, and I believe there's going to be some lives really changed. So anyway, if you'd like to fly in, grab a hotel. If you need any directions, call us here at the office. They'll tell you where a good hotel is close to the office and also close to the church so that you can attend. It would really be worth your while. I do suggest it. It's going to be a great time. Okay, well, let's, a couple more things I need to tell you, and that is, don't forget about our tour. The tour, this is our best tour in my opinion, because we not only go to Israel, but we go to Europe. We go to the home of the Holy Roman Empire. The Bible explicitly teaches the Antichrist and the false prophet will come out of the Holy Roman Empire. And guess what? The the Holy Roman Empire has now been reborn. You are going to visit the place where the Holy Roman Empire was born in 800 AD. You will see the cathedral built by the father of the Holy Roman Empire, Charlemagne, and he's still buried inside of there. I mean, it's going to be one exhilarating experience after another. Anyway, if you're thinking about going to Israel, thinking about going to the Holy Roman Empire, this is the trip I would really recommend for you. So give us a call. 1-800-ENDTIME is the number. 1-800-363-8463. Simply ask to speak to someone about the tour. They'll give you the information that you need. Okay, let's get to the phones now. We're going out to Colorado. Robert is calling from Colorado. Hello, Robert. Robert, are you with me?
Yes. Hello, Brother Irvin. I'm here.
Thank you very much. What's on your mind?
Just touching more on what we had talked about on Friday. I appreciate you taking our calls. You had mentioned that the Pharisees were accusing Yeshua, Jesus, of breaking the commandments by breaking corn, when actually it was only the Pharisaic man-made laws that he was not concerned with, going by. But, and again, I wanted to say worship on Sunday is a wonderful thing, and that the early Christians did worship on the Sunday, the first day of the week, we should say, because they were, keeping the commandments of, abiding by the Ten Commandments in the Sabbath on Saturday, or on the seventh day. So it's not a stance of where some people think that the Sunday worship is evil, which is wrong. I don't believe that at all. But worship on Sunday is part of our tradition and part of the early church, and there's nothing wrong with that. So long as it doesn't break the commandments, that the Torah means instruction. It doesn't necessarily mean law. Law really would only come in if there was transgression of the instruction. But, looking at the Torah and seeing that it means instruction, for what father would not give a child that he loves instruction? Instruction is via love. I mean, it indicates love and discipline.
Mark, before we get too stuck here, before we take too much time because we have other callers,
Sure.
Let's boil this down to its essence.
Right. My question is in Mark 7, verse 8, Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, rebukes the Pharisees and says, you've ignored God's law and substituted your own tradition, or you disregard the commandments of God and keep the tradition of men. Considering that we had established that nowhere in the Word does Yeshua change the Sabbath. He says he fulfills the Sabbath. He is the living Sabbath. And when we enter into the house of Yeshua, I mean, he represents the ark, which is safety, within that, within those pictures and typology of what we see in the prophets and in the Torah.
Okay, let me interrupt you here, Robert, because we don't have time for you to teach a Bible study here. But let me just interrupt you to say this. Here's what the issue is. Some people say we have to keep the Old Testament Sabbath on Saturday like the Jews did in the Old Testament. The question is that true or not? In the Old Testament, they were forbidden from picking up sticks on the Sabbath day. It's right in the Scriptures. And one man was caught picking up sticks, so they took him to Moses, and they said, this man is violating the Sabbath. What are we to do to him? Moses said, well, this is the first case I've had. Let me ask God. He went to the Lord, and the Lord said, stone him that he die. So that's what they did. They stoned him for picking up sticks on the Sabbath day. Now, that's the way the Old Testament Sabbath, that's part of the way it was administered. Well, then we come to the New Testament, and there's a man who's lying on his bed, paralyzed, and Jesus heals him and tells him on the Sabbath day, take up your bed and walk. Well, the Pharisees became incensed because this man was carrying his bed. Now, a bed is a lot heavier than a few sticks that the man in the Old Testament. The point is this. There was a change from the Old Testament observance to the New Testament. The Old Testament was 1 day a week, and they kept certain statutes. But in the New Testament, Jesus taught us that we have entered into a rest, a 7-day rest. The Bible says, he that hath entered into this rest has ceased from all of his own works. That's the book of Hebrews chapter 3 and chapter 4. So Jesus, he told a man to pick up his bed and walk. And the Pharisees, they said that Jesus was violating the Sabbath. Well, according to the Old Testament, it was, but not according to the New Testament. The Old Testament, the word testament means will. The Old Testament is the old will of God. The New Testament is the new will of God. So he did not disannul the Sabbath. He merely gave us the real Sabbath in that we keep it 7 days a week, not 1 day a week. That's the sum of this whole issue, and that's the way the Scripture approaches it for us. Thank you very much, Robert. I got to let you go because I got a lot of other people waiting on the line. Let's go now to Judy calling from Georgia. Hello, Judy.
Hello, Irvin. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question concerning the Revelation, I believe it's 9, with the war that will kill 1/3 of the people.
Yes.
What I'm trying to find out, does this war take place during the 7-year tribulation, or is this part of the Armageddon with the 10 kings? How does that war play in? And I'll take my question off the line.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Judy. Thank you. Well, the first thing we need to know to really understand is there's no such thing as a 7-year tribulation. Now, I know that's been taught, but there's not one scripture in the entire Bible for a 7-year tribulation. There are 6 specific scriptures that teach a 3.5 year great tribulation. Daniel 7:25 says the Antichrist will make war against the saints for times, and half a time, which is terminology for 3.5 years. Revelation chapter 13, verse 5 says that the beast will make war against the saints. This is chapter 13, verse 5 through 7, for 42 months. There's another place that says the Great Tribulation will last for 1,260 days. Every single place, it refers to a 3.5 year Great Tribulation. Now, there is a 7-year period called Daniel's 70th week, but the first half is not the Great Tribulation at all. So that's the first thing that we need to know. Now, we're up against a break. As soon as we get back, Judy, I'm going to go ahead and answer the rest of your question. Stay with us.
Does the book of Revelation frighten you? Do its symbols confuse you? For centuries, the book of Revelation has been misunderstood and misinterpreted. In Revelation, the unveiling of Jesus Christ, Volume 1, Irvin Baxter unlocks the mystery of the book of Revelation with in-depth analysis and commentary like you've never heard before. This 10-part definitive DVD series and 268-page comprehensive commentary book covers the first 12 chapters of the book of Revelation, featuring on-location photography, classic artwork, and symbolic illustrations. You'll walk away with complete understanding and peace about the events happening during the final years on Earth. These comprehensive study tools, available for $299, will deepen your biblical understanding as you dig into the original intent of the book, answering the mysterious prophecies and symbols of the book of Revelation. Don't miss this special offer. Call now, 1-800-ENDTIME, or go to endtime.com to order. Call or go online now to get this comprehensive Bible study.
So the critical part of Judy's question was the war of Revelation chapter 9, that war that emanates from the Euphrates River and kills 1/3 of the human race. When will it happen? Will it happen before the Great Tribulation or after? Well, I think what Judy really wants to know is, will it happen before the 7 years begins or after? Here's what we know for sure. This war must begin before the final 3.5 years that Jesus called the Great Tribulation. How do we know? In Revelation chapter number 9, verse 13 through 21, it describes this war. Then, when you move from there to chapter number 10, we see an angel standing 1 foot on the land, 1 foot on the sea, declaring that delay shall be no longer. Then we immediately move into chapter 11, and chapter 11 gives us the final 3.5 years. It talks about the 2 witnesses prophesying for 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. John was told to measure the temple, but do not measure the outer court, because that will be trodden down the Gentiles for the next 42 months. That's 3.5 years. So let's get the picture in our mind. The war happens in chapter 9. Chapter 10, angel stands 1 foot on the land, 1 foot on the sea, declaring delay shall be no longer. That is the event that triggers the final 3.5 years, called the Great Tribulation. So from that, we can understand that this war must take place before the beginning of the Great Tribulation. Now, we don't know. It could take place before the beginning of the final 7 years that we've been talking about a lot today. It could. I have not been able to ascertain from the scriptures whether it takes place before the 7 years begins or before the 3.5 years of Great Tribulation begins. I have not been able to answer that question. I still don't know how to answer it, because last week, if you were talking about the assassination of Hassan Soleimani, you would have thought, oh, this war is getting ready to begin because it starts from the Euphrates River. But then now everything has died down, and our focus is back on the peace agreement. I cannot tell you which one begins first. I just can simply tell you that the peace agreement starts the final 7 years, and the war of Revelation 9 must begin before the final 3.5 years. That much I know from Scripture. The rest, I guess, we're going to have to wait and see, and we may not have to wait very long. Let's get right back to the phones now. By the way, we have a few open lines. 877 Endtime is the number to call. We're going to Georgia now. Wanda is calling from Georgia. Hello, Wanda.
Hello, Dr. Baxter. It's great to speak with you. In talking about those wars and in kind of answering Judy from Georgia, her question, what about the Jeremiah 49 war where it says the prophecy of Elam, which is Iran, that they will be decimated and scattered, and then which hasn't happened yet, and then it would lead to the Psalms 83 war, which is the Arab countries surrounding Israel, which would then lead to the Ezekiel 38 war, which is like Russia and those non-Arab countries attacking Israel. When would those prophecies be fulfilled with those wars, and how would and I wondered how they would tie in with the Revelation, the Sixth Trumpet War, and in what time frame would those prophecies happen?
Well, I can answer, first of all, the Psalms 83 war is an Old Testament war. It's already happened. And there are reasons, if you'll read down through there carefully, there are reasons to understand it that way. Now, Jeremiah 49, I have not gone through this carefully. This question came up last week, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to beg off because I don't know for sure how to answer you until I go. As soon as I've finished with this program, I'll go to my office and go through this, because we had this same question last week. I'm sorry, I do not know for sure about the Jeremiah 49, but I will bring back an answer next program. That's the best I can do for you on that one.
Okay. And then the Ezekiel 38, when would that time frame be within the tribulation or the 7 years?
That one I can answer completely, because in Ezekiel 38, that is another account of the Battle of Armageddon. Here's how we know for sure. In Ezekiel 38 and 39, it tells us all about this great battle. And in verse 39, chapter 17 through 20, God calls for the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air to come to the great supper of our God. Well, the exact same thing is given about the Battle of Armageddon in Revelation chapter number 19, verse 17 through 20. It's really interesting that it's the exact same verses in Ezekiel 39, 17 through 20, Revelation 19, 17 through 20. There again, it calls for the beasts of the field, the fowls of the air to come to the great supper of our God. Same terminology. The great supper of our God will happen at the Battle of Armageddon. That's when the birds of the air and the beasts of the field will feed on the flesh of kings, captains, and mighty men. So Ezekiel 38 and 39 is the same war as the Battle of Armageddon in Revelation 19.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing the answer about Jeremiah chapter 49. more.
Okay. I'll do my best to remember it, Wanda. Thank you very much for your phone call.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let's go now to Aaron calling from right here in Texas. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Irvin. My question is just about the timing of the Antichrist signing the agreement and everything, because I guess when I read Daniel chapter 9, to me it appears that it's not necessarily the agreement being agreed to, but the Antichrist coming behind that agreement. Or, I mean, obviously this, it could be at the same time, but it also appears that it could be that the Antichrist could come in behind the agreement was already agreed upon, but also come behind it and confirm it. And that would be when the 7 years actually begins, not necessarily when the agreement is agreed upon. Am I right or am I wrong on that?
Well, here's exactly what the prophecy says. It says, and he, speaking of the Antichrist, will confirm the covenant with many for 7 years. So the question is, what constitutes the confirming of the covenant? First of all, what is the covenant? The covenant is defined for us way back in the beginning when God will actually, in Abraham's time, in Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. It says there that God spoke to Abraham saying, I enter into covenant with you this day, that you and your descendants after you forever will dwell in this land. Abraham was in Beersheba at this time, which is 50 miles south of Jerusalem. So God was making a covenant with Abraham that him and his descendant after him would live in the land of Israel, the promised land. So that's the covenant. Now, the enemies of Israel have fought against that promise, and they're still fighting against the promise today. However, everything is shifting right now, and a lot of the bitter enemies of Israel are now changing. As a matter of fact, I just read today that Saudi Arabia is going to start allowing tourism in Saudi Arabia. Of course, I'm the adventurous type. I'm immediately thinking maybe next year's tour we'll do Israel and Saudi Arabia. Well, I want to make sure that that's totally safe before we take that step. Nevertheless, I did see that article. So Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, all of the traditional Arab countries have not yet recognized Israel's right to exist. Only 2 Arab countries have made a peace agreement with Israel, Egypt and Jordan. The rest of the Arab countries have not. However, that's all shifting right now because President Trump has made very strong overtures to these people. So the bottom line is this: the Antichrist will confirm Israel's right to exist. And I believe that that happens when they sign the peace agreement. That's when they say, okay, we will no longer be against you and say you do not have a right to exist. We will agree that you have a right to exist. And he will confirm that with many. We already can see that President Trump has brought in many different people to participate. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Egypt, Jordan, the United Nations. Russia undoubtedly will be involved before it's over with because the Palestinians feel like they need Russia to keep their back in all of this. So it's going to be many people that will participate in this agreement. So the Antichrist will confirm the right of Israel to exist for a 7-year period with many. And since there's going to be several elements there, we may not know who the Antichrist is at the first. The Bible does tell us, though, we will know for sure who he is when he stands in the holy place, in the temple of God, claiming to be God. That happens halfway through the final 7 years. That's when we will know for positive. Now, we may know before. We don't know exactly how this is all going to play out, but we will know for positive who the Antichrist is at the time of the abomination of desolation. So my understanding, Aaron, is that there's going to be peace talks. A part of these peace talks will be the confirming of the covenant. And then the first 3.5 years of the 7 years, Israel will build her temple. Then they will start animal sacrifices. Then the Antichrist will make the sacrifices to stop. And that's when he will say, you don't need these sacrifices. I'm your Messiah. I'm your God. And that's the abomination of desolation. When he stands in the temple of God claiming to be God, that's the abomination of desolation, which then will trigger the final 3.5 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming. That's my understanding of the chronology.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying, and it's a great answer. When I look at it, I could see how it could play out to where the Antichrist kind of comes in behind or after the fact and confirm it. But everything you're saying is totally legitimate, and I could see it being that way as well, obviously.
Yeah, well, there are many people who agree with you, and we may have to just wait and see how it all turns out. But with this peace plan on the table, and with the United States willing to put its full weight behind this peace plan, and with the U.S. having the level of influence we have over Israel, being Israel's best friend and almost only friend, then this particular peace plan looks like it well could be the peace plan spoken of in Daniel 9:27. It's going to be very interesting to see how it all comes out shortly. What incredible times we live in. Okay, thank you very much, Aaron. We appreciate it. And again, sometimes there's a little flexibility on how we understand things. You know, it's sort of like walking out of darkness into light. The closer you get to the light, the more detail you can see. And we may not understand every little nuance and exactly how everything's going to be, but we know approximately how it's all going to happen because we are approaching the light at the end of the tunnel right now. It's all going to culminate. By the way, the light at the end of the tunnel is going to be Jesus Christ himself. The Bible calls him the light of the world. This is such exciting times. Please let me announce again, I will be in Garland, Texas at the North Cities Pentecostal Church on Saturday night and also Sunday night, both times at 6 o'clock. And then Sunday morning, I'll be preaching in both of their morning services. You're invited to all of them. The morning services are 9 and 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. Hope you all can plan to be there. I think it's going to be a great time. And God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.